Welcome to part 1 of a 3-part series where I'll be taking a look at the roster moves from teams from Pacific, EMEA, and Americas and rating them on how well I think they did in this off-season roster mania. To do this, we're going to take a look at this page, the VCT stats roster mania page. So if any of this is wrong, blame them, not me. And we're just going to go, today we're going to do Pacific. We're just going to go through the various rosters and their moves and talk about whether or not they did a good job. So let's kick it off then with Paper Rex, who, as you can see there, kept 4 of their 5 players, of course, kept the coaching staff, and unfortunately, it seems like I've removed Patman for Envy. Now, as a general kind of move, I know that Patman was a very popular figure, but I do think the bringing in Envy, I think, is an upgrade. Envy was the highest rated player during stage 1 in Pacific on a team that only won 1 game, which is very, very impressive. So Envy, I think, has been, Team Secret's best player for basically ever since he's been there, and has been, a very, very good player in Pacific throughout. Now, keeping the other 4, I think, is a given, right? That would be kind of crazy for Paper X, considering they won their first trophy last year. To change any of the 4 that have been there for a very long time would have kind of been crazy. So that, of course, is absolutely fine. And then I personally do think that Envy for Patman is an upgrade. I know that Patman is a very popular figure for Paper Rex fans, so some of you might not be too happy with it, but I do think overall this team should be pretty good. Envy can fill in the roles pretty well. He's played a lot of roles himself. Obviously, this is a very flexible team in general. And this team definitely going to multiple, if not all of the internationals, should be competing for international titles. And I think adding Envy is only going to help that, to be honest. So I think this is a good move. Overall, in their pink-purple color, I'm going to give them an A. I'm not going to give them an A+, just because I like Patman as well. And he did win you a trophy. Okay, let's move on to DRX, who very handedly just decided to keep the exact same team. Obviously, they had a very good end of the year. They finished well in champs. And so they just kept the same team, which is absolutely fine, of course. My question when it comes to DRX, and this is going to be your question for the comments down below, let me know what you think, is do you believe that this DRX roster can actually win a tournament? And that is where I think you're going to get some debate. Some of you I know will be saying, yes, they can. They showed it at champs. They have a very high ceiling, all of that. Some of you, though, I'm sure will still have doubts. And I might have some doubts as well, because I think that DRX, the thing that I think, when they found success, which was early on in the year during the start of the Teo meta and towards the end of the year when they figured out the Wailer Yoru stuff, is I think that when they are good, it's because they have a kind of meta advantage. Because Termi has found something in the game, some combo or whatever, that he's figured out quicker than other people, and that's giving them advantage on top of the fact that they're already a good team. Can he do it again? Yes, there probably will be, moments and patch changes and stuff like that where that will happen again, but I don't think it's going to be consistent for them throughout the entire season. And I do think, when you think about, what if DRX got Munchkin instead of T1? Would we all not be going, oh, that's crazy, this team's going to be insane now? Maybe Mako isn't IGLing now, he's free as well, I think that would have been kind of the way the team can win a trophy. So for that reason, I'm not going to go I'm going to give them a B+, right? It's absolutely fine to stick with what you've got when you finish so well. But I do think there was opportunities there for this team to get better. Okay, let's move on to Gen.G. Speaking of Munchkin, because obviously Gen.G got rid of Munchkin and brought in Lakia in his stead. They're keeping Karen, Texture, and Ash by the looks of it. And Foxy9, we don't know, because they were playing, what was he called? Zinx was playing in their most recent off-season events. But we think that was a stand-in. We're not really sure if he'll be on the team or not. So we don't really know who their 5th is right now. Zinx did okay. He wasn't amazing. He was okay in those off-season events. Obviously, it's still going to be good. You've got Karen and Texture. It can only really be so bad. Ash, I think, proved himself as a pretty decent player last year as well. Lakia actually did look very good in the off-season games that they were playing. So there is this roster isn't going to be bad, don't get me wrong. But they're definitely not going to be as good. That, I think, is the thing you have to... is this team better than last year? No. I think they're very much worse than last year. I think that they have to be worse than last year. So I think I'm going to give them a deep blue C. Probably even a deep blue C-, because I think that losing Munchkin is a massive deal. He's one of the best IGLs in the world, I would say. When you lose one of the best IGLs in the world, your team cannot be better. RRQ Let's move on to them, and they have just decided to keep it the same, apart from Ewok decided to step down, and they brought in Jovi, it looks like, as head coach. I actually thought Warbirds would have been the head coach, but it looks like, according to this, Jovi is going to be the head coach. Instead, he was with Talon last year. Keeping the same team together, obviously last year was a pretty successful year, I think, for RRQ. Again, when I'm talking about like DRX, could they have got Munchkin? I think a similar thing might be said for RRQ. Could they have got Envy? But again, I'm not going to hate on them too much for this. So again, for RRQ, I'm going to give them a B+ as well. Moving on to T1, let's talk about Munchkin again, because this is the team that obviously Munchkin has joined. And we were talking about T1 on VODfathers, and you know, the big thing when Munchkin came in was a lot of people were like, oh, you brought in Munchkin, that means that Stacks must be gone. But then we've actually seen that Stacks is staying, and it's DH who's been sent down, as they said in that tweet. Of course, they also got rid of Autumn, brought in KDG, who's the coach of T1 Academy. I don't know too much about KDG, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. But I do know about Munchkin, and I do know he's one of the best IGLs in the world. So bringing him in makes a lot of sense. Now, we were talking on VODfathers about their most recent games, and actually how the roles make more sense, perhaps, with this version of the team versus the version with DH. And that maybe is one of the reasons why they've gone with this. Because if they got rid of Stacks and kept DH, you'd probably be looking at Itsu playing Sova and Fade and stuff like that, which maybe is a pretty significant nerf to him and his potential as well. Whereas with this roster, you've got more experience. Maybe the roles make a bit more sense in allowing Meteor, Buzz, and Itsu to just go off and frag. Stacks can probably improve his fragging a little bit now that he's not IGLing, and Munchkin is just a GOAT. So things are looking pretty good for T1. Similar to Gen.G, when you lose one of the best IGLs, you're in trouble. When you add one of the best IGLs, you're doing really well. So again, in the nice little hot pink here, we're going to give them an A. Again, I'm not going to quite give them an A+, because there is a world, and I'm not sure how the contract situation with DH is, but if DH ends up leaving because he's not starting on this team for another Korean team, then that will be a big loss. Nongshim, let's take a look at them. So they have just stuck with the team that they had for Ascension. Now, that team is without Persia. That's not the same team that they had, you know, during Pacific last year. Then they had Persia. Now they've brought in Exros. And when I was watching Ascension, I actually thought Exros, he had very good fragging. He looked like a good fragger, but I thought he was playing full-time smokes. He was taking Persia's role. And I actually thought there was some times where I thought, ooh, I'm not so sure about the smokes. Like, is he that comfortable on it? You know, he seems to be missing some things on the smokes. But looking at his more recent games, playing in the 10 Invitational, he was actually the highest rated player in that entire tournament. And doing very well on smokes. So I'm going to assume that, you know, during this offseason, you know, he's been playing a ton of smokes, learning the role properly, and it all looks good. So for Nongshim, can they actually make an international with this team? That's where I start to doubt a bit again. So again, I'm going to give them a B+. I think this is fine to stick together, but you know, is there room for improvement? Maybe there is, right? But I don't hate what they're doing. Okay, now let's come to the Japanese teams. And with the Japanese teams, we don't really fully know what's going on, as you can tell by the fact that we don't have 5 players for either of the 2 Japanese teams. But let's start with Zeta Division. They're keeping Sugar Zero and XDLL. It looks like they're adding in Eco and Absol. Now, Absol, you know, had some nice moments. Eco was actually on the old Gen.G team from a very long time ago. They're getting rid of 1010, CLZ, Dep. XQQ being the coach, I'm definitely a fan of that. I think that's good. But I still look at this team and I'm like, I'm not sure this team is going to do much. And if you look at their recent results, they lost 2-0 to Full Sense, the old Full Sense, not with like the new Talon roster, with the old roster. I just don't have very high hopes for this team. And there's like a part of me that's like, well, the talent pool in Japan maybe isn't good enough to form a great team. I don't have much hope, so I'm just going to give them a deep blue C. And for DFM, it's much the same, right? Like, we got 4 of the players that they had last year. I think for me, again, like, you kept May, which is great, but do I think, again, that this team is going to be super competitive? Not really, so I'm going to give them a deep blue C, but I'll give them a C+, because you kept May. Not much hope, really, for either of the 2 Japanese teams, again, unfortunately. Let's move on to Team Secret here. So Team Secret have kept Kelly S, they've kept Jesse Vash. It looks like they're adding in Sylvan, which is an interesting pickup. And obviously they lost Envy, let go of Wild Oreos, SPW, and Nizzy. Obviously this was a team that wasn't doing that great last year anyway, I'm not super hopeful. Lost your best player. That's never a great sign. I mean, Sylvan, to be fair, is like a decent tier 1 player. That's not the worst pickup in the world, but I'm looking for a color here to give them a bad grade. Let's go for a little dark green, a dark green D. Let's move on to Global, who actually, when you look at this team, they kept Urotan and Crystal. They're bringing in Autumn from FPX, Javi 8K, and Patman, of course. They bring in Frost and Vladkor as well. And when you look at this global esports team, this must be on paper, the best global team, right? On paper, this must be the best team that they've had. Personalities from different teams and stuff, and, having to make it all work might be a concern as well, though I think that bringing in a strong personality like Frost, I think, will help with that. Frost is going to lead this team, and it's going to be his team. But on paper, this looks like a decent team. So that does actually fill me with some hope. Now, I do still think that they might have some problems. Will Crystal IGL? Because Crystal was IGLing, I think, for part of the season last year, but then not other times in the season. So there definitely is some things to figure out here. But again, I'm going to give Global a B+ for this. Okay, SLT. Obviously, one Ascension. Just keeping it all together. They look like a pretty good Ascension team, to be honest. Looks like, again, they're going to be competitive. Kind of like Nongshim were last year, right, when they were coming in. I'm not going to say that SLT will, like, go to international straight away or anything like that, but I think they'll at least be competitive. Yeah, no real problem with this. I'm not going to be too mad with them sticking together. We'll give them an A- and move on. And then obviously we got Full Sense, the new team coming in to replace Talon. And yeah, they just signed all of Talon, but moved Cruz to head coach and kept one of their players, Leviathan, who's been there for a little while now and is a pretty good player. Also a Thai player, so we got the Thai representation in there. We got all the Talon boys back. Cruz as head coach is kind of crazy, and I kind of love it, to be honest. The only question then becomes, of course, Cruz was IGLing, like, who is then IGLing? But because obviously these players have played with Cruz before, they're going to know what he wants them to do. This I'm going to just give an A. This I'm going to give an A+ to, because there was a lot of worlds where we could have ended up with a bad scenario, where some of these guys don't end up in tier 1 when they deserve to be, and the team splits up and it's all sad. So the fact that we got them here, I'm going to give them an A+, because they're all in tier 1, even if Cruz is now a head coach instead of a player. It's all happy, it's all shiny, it's all rainbows. So I'm just happy that they're here.